Today for lunch, we had a mushroom onion cheese pastry, soup, and salad. Eating well typically means thinking ahead, sometimes the day before, about what we will eat. And so here I am the night before. I have a cup and a half of all purpose flour, a stick of butter, that's half a cup, and a block of cream cheese and salt. This is going to be the foundation for our dough for our mushroom pastry. So our cream cheese and butter are at about room temperature, almost. I cut it up so that it would soften a little faster. And you don't need a mixer for this. I just did it because I had a lot of I'm busy, but you could totally do this by hand. I just used the mixer to beat this butter. When that was pretty soft, I added in my cream cheese. I really beat that very well. You don't need a high speed. I just added about, quarter to a half of a teaspoon of salt, maybe, to my 1.5 cups of flour. Now, it's very important when you add your flour, you really, if you're using a mix, it needs to be on very low speed because we don't want flour going everywhere. So we just kind of let all of that flour get touched by our butter cream cheese mix. You may need to scrape down the bowl if you're using an automatic mixer like this. And then once that happens, you can start to increase the speed. So you'll see the dough kind of start to form together. The reason I love this dough and why I wanted to show this to you is that unlike some of the other doughs that I make, which are a little bit more complicated and they do require more skill and know-how, this one just comes together. It's very forgiving. The high fat content means that it's almost impossible to overmix this and build up unnecessary gluten in the flour, in the dough. So as you can see, it's really started to come together. It's starting to completely pull away from the bowl and form just one mass of dough ball, which is exactly what we want. All right, so I'll scrape down my bowl. As you see, I've put a piece of saran wrap here on the countertop, and I'm going to wrap my dough in that saran wrap and put that in the fridge overnight. We really do want this to chill well and have a chance to set. I'm now going to make the filling for our mushroom onion cheese pastry. So I have some mushrooms here. Honestly, I don't know how much that is. Eyeball it. I don't know what to tell you. I'm using an entire red onion. I'm using a couple of cloves of garlic. I have a few kinds of assorted cheeses. I can't tell you exactly what cheese to use here, but I recommend that you find some mix of stretchy melty cheese, such as maybe like a mozzarella, and then a more flavorful cheese like a Gruyere or a Munster or something like that. That's what I did. I used salt and pepper. I also used Parmesan Romano cheese, and I used sour cream. Now, look how dirty these mushrooms are. This is why I encourage you to never buy pre-sliced mushrooms. They're always dirty. And unfortunately, you really should not wash them. The French way is to never wash mushrooms. You just want to take paper towels and you want to really, really take your time and rub them clean. If you wash them, that water is going to waterlog your mushrooms and they won't soak up any other good flavors. It's just going to taste like rubbery water. And we don't want that. So that happened off camera. As you see, I have rough chopped both my mushrooms and my onions. I chopped up my garlic, 2 cloves of garlic. And I'm going to get started in the saute pan with a little bit of butter and a little bit of olive oil. The mix of the two will give you a combination of good flavor plus protection against burning. All right, we're going to start sweating our onions. I'm cooking these until they get a little color. And once they do, I'll add my mushrooms. Now, mushrooms are going to shrink down a lot, even more than the onions will. So what looked like a large quantity won't quite feel as big once these are cooked down. This is a good time to add some salt and pepper. All right, I'm going in with my garlic last, just because I can't really overcook my onions or my mushrooms here, but you absolutely can overcook garlic. Garlic is easy to burn. You want to keep a close eye on your heat and keep stirring. There's nothing worse than ruining a dish with burned, bitter tasting garlic. Okay, so once I cooked that completely and I took that off the heat, that's a piece of mushroom that you see there by the knife, by the way. I started to chop up 3 types of cheeses that I had. I had Munster, I had a mild cheddar, and I had a Spanish soft melting cheese. I just chopped those up and I waited for my mushroom onion mix to not to be completely cool, but definitely to cool down. You always see me with a container in the kitchen where I can throw vegetable scraps, paper towels, and empty containers, whatever. I'm using the empty mushroom container. Always be thinking ahead like that so you can keep your countertops clean. All right, so I've added that to my starting to cool mushroom mixture. I added some Parmesan and Romano cheese, just a little bit, give it some good umami flavor. And I'm going to add some sour cream. We don't really need too much of that, just a little bit. And now we'll mix that. All of this is now going to go in the fridge. Oh, and I did add a tiny dash of Worcestershire sauce. That's very optional, but it is going to make it nice. All right, so now you see me the next day making coffee this morning for myself and for Eric, and we're going to get started on today's lunch. Remember, we put our filling and our dough in the fridge. Now it's time for our dough to come out of the fridge on an impeccably clean countertop, which we have floured lightly. I'm going to take advantage of that saran wrap. I'm going to put it down on the dough ball so that it won't stick to my rolling pin. And I left my rolling pin at the house down in Miami, so guess what we're using today? A bottle of Pernod. Huh. You got to find ways to make it work. I have so many rolling pins, it's crazy. And look at me using a bottle of alcohol. All right, I don't have exact measurements for you. I've made this so many times I just eyeball it. If you intend to make this and you really want an exact measurement, I'll be happy to get that for you. So I've rolled out my dough pretty thin. We've rolled it into a long rectangle. We've trimmed the sides. And we've made 2 of these that kind of look like a point. And we're going to add the filling to the middle of both of these. And once we have done that, you see I've kind of given these an angle on the top of them, both of these pastries. We're going to cut lines on the side. Make sure that both sides get exactly the same amount of cuts of lines, and you'll see why here. Notice that I left a portion at the top of the dough, and that's so we can fold that part down over our filling. So we've cut an even number of lines into our dough, and then we've just used that to crisscross over the filling mixture. Now, the purpose of this is that it will give your pastry even amount of place for the heat to escape. This filling is going to get very hot. It has a lot of cheese in it, and cheese is like gonna get like basically like boiling hot. So that will ensure that, our pastry doesn't spill out. The heat has somewhere to go. All right, we're tidying up. That went into the oven at 375. Okay, now we're getting our soup ready. This is just carrots, peas, green beans, and tomatoes. I have, again, a whole onion. I have 1 clove of garlic. I'm using the Better Than Bouillon chicken base. I'm using the one that is reduced sodium. You can use like a Knorr chicken cube or something like that. I just find that this is better, tastes better. And of course I have a little salt and pepper. All right. My oven was, I think I didn't put my pastry in just then. My oven was still preheating, I think. All right, so I'm using a cassoulet pan. You can use any kind of stock pot that you want. I have a medium heat. I'm going in with just a touch of olive oil. Got my veg all prepped. Do save a little bit of the vegetable on the top just as a garnish, because your vegetables do lose a little bit of color in the process of making a soup. So you just want to top the soup with some fresh uncooked veggies. You can use any kind of veggies that you want to, by the way. It doesn't just have celery would have been great in here. Maybe some green pepper. I just used what I had. All right. And feel free to cook these onions on a very low heat and let them caramelize. That actually would have been better than what I did. I was just kind of like ready to get this done. But if you need to step away from the kitchen, you can definitely feel free to cook this on a much lower heat than I did. That way that your onions can caramelize. Once you're satisfied with the level of caramelization, you can add in your garlic, saute for a minute, add in your tomatoes, let those sweat down for a couple of minutes, and then you can add in all the rest of your veg. Now, I'm going to stir a little bit gently here because I don't want my peas to break. We really are done here almost. Like, we don't want to overcook our vegetables. They are going to have to simmer in the soup for a while. So, all right, I'm going in with a nice heaping teaspoon of my Better Than Bouillon chicken base. The nice thing about this is it doesn't just add a little bit of chicken flavor. It has a lot of nice herbal notes that I feel you just kind of don't quite get that with the Knorr chicken cubes. However, like I said, you want to use a Maggi chicken cube or a Knorr. Use what you have. Use what's affordable to you. I promise you it's going to be a million times better for your health than eating from a drive-thru. So we'll just mix that up. Let that saute for a minute. Then we can add our liquid, which is going to be like a few cups of liquid, just enough to, cover our veg. And I'm going to put the lid on here, and I'm going to turn the heat way down low to simmer, and we can walk away from that. Okay, our last step before we put our two pastries into the oven. This is optional, but I really feel that it adds something special. We're going to use an egg wash, which is just a beaten egg. And I'm using everything bagel seasoning. You could totally just use poppy seeds or sesame seeds. But the egg wash, which I've brushed onto the top of the pastry, is going to make that everything bagel seasoning stick. And it's going to add just a little nice crunchiness. At a 375-degree oven. That took 25 minutes, plus I also left it in the oven for another 3 minutes on broiler. That's the upper heating element, so that this could crisp up on the top. The pastry is rich and buttery and flaky. The filling is so delicious that you have those different kinds of cheeses, very earthy mushrooms, somewhat caramelized onions, so delicious. And then, we have a green salad. This is just mixed greens. Don't go heavy on a lot of dressing. You have a very rich and buttery pastry. The dough is buttery and flaky too, not just the filling. So probably just red wine vinegar and a little olive oil, maybe just a dash of salt and pepper on that salad. And then we have our soup. So this is something that's very typical to like a French bistro kind of a lunch. These two pastries are going to serve for very hungry people, or maybe 5 or 6 not so hungry people. I hope you enjoyed. Take care.